Alex, explain to the listeners, why would a judge-led inquiry be better than the committee-led inquiry that's currently taking place?
Well, we have two different remits, Tommy. The current inquiry being undertaken by the Parliamentary Committee is into how the Scottish Government handles harassment complaints, and particularly how they handled the harassment complaints in relation to the Alex Salmond case. But the judge-led inquiry I'm proposing would have a different remit, because the core argument here from Alex Salmond, who's a former First Minister and who knows government inside out, is that the organs of the state, in this case the Civil Service and the Crown Office, were used to pursue a political vendetta and conspiracy against him. Now, I don't know if that's true or untrue. What I do know is that that's a very, very serious allegation coming from a highly respected former First Minister, and therefore I think merits proper investigation. And I don't think you can have a politician looking into that. It has to be somebody who knows the law, somebody who's impartial, somebody who's independent, and somebody who can summon all the paperwork, all the documentation, and all the evidence required to make a decision as to whether Alex Salmond's allegation is true, untrue, partially true, or whatever. And I think that is required, because that way we should get to the bottom of whether that's the case. It's a very, very serious issue if the organs of the state in any way at any time are used to pursue individuals for political reasons rather than for criminal reasons. And I think, therefore, it fully justifies a judge-led inquiry.
Alex, I think I'm probably in the position of the majority of those in Scotland who believe passionately that we should have an independent Scotland, but I'm not a member of the SNP. And I look at what has developed over this last couple of years, and I worry and I'm concerned that the fallout eventually is going to have a detrimental effect on the independence campaign itself. Now, can you assure me, because I know you're absolutely a crusader and passionate for independence for Scotland, can you assure me that it's not going to interfere with the campaign to deliver independence?
No, I don't think it will, actually, Tommy. And the reason I don't think it will is because people see this as a separate issue. It's part of the ongoing discussion about how we run Scotland, whether it's a devolved Scotland or an independent Scotland. You know, when the Parliament was formed and you were there and you and I signed up to the founding principles of the Parliament, which included openness, transparency and accountability. So the debate that we're having just now, the investigation by the Parliamentary Committee, should be about openness, transparency and accountability, and a judge-led inquiry with the remit that I've suggested would also be about openness, transparency and accountability. We are a modern democracy and we have got to act accordingly. And I think people can separate, and the electorate can see the difference between the question of whether or not Scotland should be an independent nation and these other ongoing issues that we have. And you would have in an independent Scotland as well, because, you know, once you're independent, you'll be hopefully permanently independent. So in 50, 100 years' time, you may have similar issues cropping up. And the other evidence is this, Tommy. This has now been going on, this, let me call it the Alex Salmond affair, has been going on now for 3 years. And during that time, we've actually seen support for independence rise very significantly to now where I think we're on to about the 13th opinion poll in a row showing majority support for independence. So I think the evidence shows that the electorate are not put off independence. And I think actually most people in the electorate would say, well, look, if somebody's making a serious allegation like this, who's a former First Minister, it's got to be taken seriously, it's got to be investigated, and if there's any truth in it whatsoever, appropriate action then needs to be taken. But I don't think that puts them off independence per se, and I think the evidence is very clear in that. I think the thing that's driving independence more than anything is the prospect of Scotland being run by Boris Johnson for much longer.
definitely. Alex, I was doing some research for an article just yesterday, and it's actually 14 opinion polls, successive opinion polls, now showing a clear majority for independence. So you're absolutely spot on in that this whole situation involving Alex Salmond, which has embroiled Alex Salmond, has been going on for 3 years, and so far it hasn't had an effect on support for independence. But what I would say is that I know Alec not anywhere near as well as you. I met Alec during the Parliament when he was the leader of the SNP. He very gratefully guaranteed support for the first private members bill, which you were a co-sponsor of, to abolish pindons and warrant sales in Scotland, and I was grateful for that support from the SNP, and it was that support that got the bill through Parliament. I feel that man has been traduced publicly. His reputation has been wholly undermined. There has been strategic leaks to newspapers designed to bring down the political and personal reputation of this man. I feel that he deserves a judge-led inquiry because, like you, I suspect that the highest echelons of the civil service and the Crown Office and political agents have been involved in bringing down Alex Salmond. Do you think the inquiry so far has shown any evidence of that?
Well, certainly, I mean, the Lord Advocate's refusal to publish the legal evidence, I think, is a bad decision because people there's a saying in Scotland, there's no smoke without fire. So my view is, and, the First Minister said right at the beginning that everything the committee asked for, the committee would get. And I hope that the committee will get all the legal evidence because I think as I've mentioned before, the founding principles of the Parliament are openness, transparency and accountability. And I think it's better for everybody just to put everything out on the table and then let the inquiry reach its conclusions and then let both the Parliament and the people make up their mind about what went wrong. There are two sets of victims in this. There's Alex Salmond, clearly. The evidence so far to the committee, where we've had 4 senior civil servants have to come back to rectify their evidence to the committee to correct it, which is hardly a brilliant advert for the quality of senior civil servants involved.
But Alex, one of those senior civil servants is the Director of Communications, who says originally that they couldn't remember receiving a very important WhatsApp message that talked about losing a battle but not the war in relation to Alex Salmond. Is it in any way sustainable or conceivable that a Director of Communications could forget receiving such a high-profile message?
Well, she's one of 4 who've committed this similar faux pas, let's call them that, Tommy, for the purposes of this conversation. 4 senior civil servants. I mean, somebody told me they had counted with the Permanent Secretary at not yesterday's, but the previous evidence session that she gave to the committee, that she said 20 times that she had forgotten what had happened. Now, that is really stretching belief to beyond credibility, quite frankly. So there's a lot of questions, I think, to be answered by the civil service about their performance so far in the committee. But, there's no doubt Alex Salmond has suffered because, it's hellish to be accused of something which you very clearly you've now been found absolutely innocent of. But also the women involved, if any... they've been through hell as well. So you've got a lot of victims here, and I think the responsibility of the state and the Parliament and the government and the people who run these things is to get this sorted and to make sure that justice is done at the end of the day and to make sure that this can never happen again.